exactly that, a heat map, right? And what are some things we learned from that map? What did it tell us? What do the different colors tell us about the different areas? That, a heat map.
There's some cooler colors here. There's some warmer colors.
Yeah, Zoe has her map there. So let's start with this. What do we know about the green communities on our map? What do we know that they have on our map? Do you guys remember? I know it's kind of hard. Go on, Ariane and Zelda. You guys have been to school since then.
Um, it it's basically telling you it warm, hot, extremely hot, cold, good taste, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the green communities on our map, we know that they have at least one school, at least one hospital, and at least one park. You guys remember that, right? And then the yellow means that you have at least two of the three. Orange means you only have one of the three, and red means zero, right? And so we talked on Tuesday about some of the ways we might help as a health equity researcher. We might help some of the communities that maybe have less resources. Can anybody remember some of the solutions that we came up with that a health equity researcher might come up with or recommend? Can anybody remember? So if I live, go ahead, Jasmine.
To go like in a green spot.
Yeah, right. Maybe if you can, if you're privileged enough to be able to move or travel to somewhere that has the resources, right? Another solution might be if you're health equity research and you notice that an area has no parks, right? So it has no green space, it might be difficult for people to go out and be active. Then you might talk to people in the government or talk to people who work in community-based organizations to make sure that a park is built in that area or that those communities have access to spaces where they can be active outdoors. Okay. So just a brief recap. Good job remembering. I know you guys have been to school and done all of that since we last met. So let's start off with a recap of kind of some of the things we talked about. Let's start from the beginning, right? So before we even get to data science, what did we say data is? What are data? Valerie.
Information.
Exactly, right? Pieces of information that tell us about people, places, or things, okay? And who remembers statistics? We talked about this again on Tuesday, but who remembers statistics from last semester? What types of data did we collect, Alison?
We collected the data of like we put into each color, and then we and then we put and then we said how many of which color we had, and I think we all had more red. That I think that's what I mean. I think we want.
Right. I mean, you said two great things there, Alison. Not only did we just collect the number, right, of each color, we also collected the overall number, but we also then used that data, that information to make inferences, right? So inferences are conclusions or patterns that we see in the data, right? And so Alison said, I think the most popular color or the most common color was red, right? And this is what we do with data, right? We collect it. We don't just collect it and say, okay, I'm done now. We find different ways to visually represent it, or we might create different things like statistics, right? That tell us information about the data that we've collected beyond just, okay, we collected data, right? It tells us what's the most popular color, what's the least popular color, right? What can I do with this information? Maybe I go back to M&Ms and say, hey, you've got too many red M&Ms in your bag. You need to add some more green or something, okay? So this is all this is a field of data science, but yeah, essentially that's what data are. Okay. Ariana and Zelda, do you have a question? Somebody's in the waiting room. I think it's Giovanna. Go ahead.
I remember statistics from last year.
Yeah, what did you remember about it?
That the guest speaker put got a chart, and then he put
like how many colors we have.
Yeah, so he did something there where he visually represented the data, right? So he took those pieces of information and he made them into graphs. And those graphs are a visual way to look at our data. Okay. And so let's, on that note, Miss Andrea, what are some types of data that we might use or collect?
All right, do you guys remember the 3 types of data? Go ahead, Zoe.
Grades.
Ooh.
Grades? Well, grades, that's a good direction on it. So actually, grades is part of a type of data. Do you guys have any more guesses? If we can talk about what types of data there are. So you can do your grades. Those are part of a data. You can ask people questions. Right. So there's going to be 3 types of data. It's going to be numbers, words, and pictures. So when we're talking about stats, we're talking about pictures, right? We made a chart. And with that chart, we were able to look at how many M&Ms there were, right, for each group. Well, that's going to be under pictures. And then when Zoe was talking about grades, grades are a number. So that's going to be under numbers for data. Grades, maybe like how many like candy have I ate in the whole day? Or maybe how many cards you see that are red. And then there's other ones called words. The type of data called words are like surveys where people give you an answer. Like maybe like, have you guys ever seen like Yelp? When you give like a review on a restaurant, you're like, 1 star, I didn't like it. The food was cold. Or you could have been like, 5 stars, the best food I've ever had, right? Those are surveys. And what they want is your words. They want to hear what you think about it, right? So those are going to be the 3 types of data: numbers, words, and pictures. Now that we have the 3 types of data, do you guys have any idea of the type of people that collect data?
Talked about some examples. There's lots of different examples. Valerie.
Doctors collect data of your health.
Yeah, doctors collect data too. Yeah, great answer. Yeah. Zoe?
Farmers.
Farmers do collect data too. Yeah, they do it every single year for harvest. Giovanna?
Teachers.
Teachers. Wonderkids, we collect data too. We want to know how much you guys are learning. So we pay attention to what you guys draw, and we're like, okay, they're doing good. They're doing good. Yeah. Do you guys have any other guesses for people that collect data? Okay, so I'll give you guys all the types of people we put down on these slides that collect data. So we're first going to start off with scientists. Scientists collect data, and they do that by doing experiments, right? And when you get your results, you put them in like graphs and all these types of forms, right? Like maybe like on Tuesday, we're talking about heat maps. Heat maps are a form of data because they're pictures. Scientists look at heat maps to keep track of numbers. And then there's also business owners. They want to know how much you like their food, right? Like restaurant owners. So sometimes they want to do surveys. So they know what dish you like, what you don't like. Like maybe you thought the soup tasted gross, but the burgers were good. Then there's communities too. And we're going to do a little bit of data with communities as well. And later, Miss Kelsey's going to show us like an activity that talks more about communities and how epidemiologists look at communities to help with that. So I'll keep that one a surprise for later. Weather forecasters, they collect data too to make sure what the next day is going to look like, if it's going to be rainy or not. And then there's farmers and teachers. Yeah, so you guys got that one right too. Farmers want to know when the next crop is going to go. If corns grow more than tomatoes. What do people want more? And then teachers like us, we look at you guys. And we're like, maybe this concept is too hard. These slides are too hard, or maybe too easy for you guys. So we look at how well you guys do, and we're like, okay, we're going to teach about this and that. And they want to learn more about math, maybe. All right. So let's go to a review of what is data science. Do you guys remember what data science is?
Not a trick question. It's kind of like data is pieces of information that you collect and you do something with it. So what is data science? What does science mean? Maybe think about that. Aaron and Zelda?
Oh, you science is the learning of experiments.
Yeah, learning of experiments, and experiments do something specific, right? Experiments help us to make discoveries, learn things, answer questions, right? Prove or disprove a hypothesis that we might have, or should I say, provide evidence in support or against a hypothesis. That's a better way to phrase it, right? So if science is all about exploring and answering questions and making discoveries, and data is about collecting information, right? Data science is all about collecting information and using that to answer questions we have and make discoveries, right? So data science is using information, data to understand things and make decisions. For example, a researcher might look at data from lots of people and see who needs the most help to stay healthy. And that's just one example of data science. And I use that example because today we're specifically talking about how data science is used in health equity research. And why? Because I am a health equity researcher. Okay. So, as part of my job as a health equity researcher, okay, I collect lots of data, right? And I collect that data in many different ways. Can you guys think of ways that if I'm trying to figure out information about people's health, how might I collect data? Any ideas, Ariana and Zelda?
Well, maybe they could try researching to collect ideas. I
Yeah,
thought it's like
researching to collect ideas, right? How might I do that research? So if I want to get some information about a certain group, like students, how might I find out about your health? If I come to your school and I'm like, I want to find out about the health of this school, what might I do, Jasleen?
testing and comparing.
Testing and comparing, right? And I'll do that through something maybe called like a survey. Has anybody heard of a survey before? What's a survey? Go ahead. Let's see. I think Valerie had her hand up first. You don't want to answer? Ariana and Zelda, go ahead.
Okay, a survey. It's very easy because on Saturdays when I have some well, it's not school, but just say some academy, right? At the end of the day, they take a survey how they think about the school.
Yeah. So they might ask questions about what somebody thinks about the school. So Ariana and Zelda go to Saturday school and they might ask questions like, how did you like today's lesson? How could we improve today's lesson? And those answers are an example of data that we collect, right? So that's an example of a survey. You might get asked, you might be given a survey at a restaurant. Has anybody ever answered questions at a restaurant? How did you enjoy your meal? What was your favorite part of your experience? How could we improve your experience? For example, that's an example of a survey, right? So if I want to collect information about health, right, I might conduct surveys. So I might ask questions about how many fruit and vegetables did you eat in the past month? Okay. How often or how long do you spend a day exercising, for example, right? These might be questions that I ask in a survey to learn about people's health-related habits, for example. I might ask them questions like, have you ever been told that you have diabetes? Or have you ever been told that you have heart disease? Or these types of things, right? And these are all questions that I might ask on a survey to collect that information. Another source that I might use for my data might be something called an electronic health record, right? So when you guys go to the doctor, right? You guys have been to your doctor before, right? And they ask you all these questions like, how long have you been feeling sick for? Have you had a cold before? All these questions, right? Your doctor's typing it in. As a researcher, I might get access to that information so that I can figure out how many people got sick in the area around USC within the past year, right? How many people got sick specifically from the flu? Or how many people in this area have cancer, right? I work a lot with cancer. And so I might use either surveys or medical health records, or I might use data that's been collected by other researchers to help me with my work. Okay. And then what I do with that information is I analyze it. Okay, so I might use computers or I might look at the data if it's words and I might analyze it and look for patterns in the data. And I use the patterns that I identify to make recommendations or advice or make real changes that might help people. So I might recommend somebody in the government that they should build a clinic or a hospital in a certain area where a lot of people are getting sick, for example. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about some of this work? I'm going to go into my like kind of talk soon. Does anybody have any questions? I never talk about my research. So this is an opportunity. You guys get to ask me, Ariana and Zelda.
How many research have you done and how many people you tried to help or help?
Oh, that's a really good question. How many researchers have I done? Okay, so I've worked on a lot of different research projects, so it's hard to put a number on the specific number that I've worked on. But as a PhD student, I'm constantly working on different research projects. The number of people I've helped. So here's a little bit of a secret. Remember how we talked in the Public Health Week about how doctors tend to help like one person at a time, right? And doctors will help hundreds and thousands of people, but usually they just see one patient at one time, right? They sit down and they say, how can I help you? Okay, you need this medication. This will help you. When you work in health equity research or public health or as an epidemiologist like Dr. Fatimata, you help big groups of people, right? Because your job as a researcher is to look at data from lots of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, and you look at patterns, okay? So if I look at a pattern, I see, okay, people who only sleep 5 hours a night tend to be more likely to get sick during flu season, for example, right? That's a pattern, right? And so what I will then do is I'll give recommendations that will be like, for those people that only sleep 5 hours, we need to give them advice on how to get to sleep earlier and to sleep better, for example, right? And so that makes it really hard to put a number on the number of people that we help because it's all about trying to help big groups by finding patterns. Does that answer your question? You're always looking for patterns and groups of people and how you can help those groups of people. So it's hard to put a number on it. But one thing I will say is I'm going to start kind of, let's see if you guys can see the screen. This is me. Hi. Smiley, smiley, smiley. So first thing I do as a health equity researcher is I identify vulnerable or groups that are in need. Okay. Does anybody know what a vulnerable group might mean or might be? Vulnerable or in need? Go ahead, Valerie.
Elderly people.
The elderly, right? And why are the elderly a vulnerable group?
Maybe because their body like stops functioning correctly and they get weak.
Right, they definitely get weaker. It's much harder for them to do everyday tasks, right? They might be more likely to fall over. And generally, what we see with people as they age is that they start to get more things like chronic illnesses, for example, right? And so they are a vulnerable or in need group, right? Definitely. Before we carry on, Vulnerable tends to mean exactly what I just said, right? A group that's in need, a group that might be at risk of something, right? That's generally the definition of vulnerable, okay? So based off of that, what other groups might be vulnerable? Valerie said elderly people. What other groups might be vulnerable? Zoe?
Babies,
Babies. And why are babies vulnerable?
because they're young and they don't know much yet.
Right, they're young, they don't know much yet. They're very dependent on their parents. They can't walk around on their own. They need their parents to feed them, right? Their bones are very delicate. Okay, so they're a vulnerable group. They can't speak for themselves, defend themselves, right? So babies are a vulnerable group. What's another example of a vulnerable or in need group? Can you guys think? So you have babies and elderly people. Who else might be in need? Allison.
Also people that are pregnant because they have child inside and they won't be able to do daily tasks like picking up things. They might not be able to do chores because if a child's in the stomach, it makes it much harder to bend or clean or do anything.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? Not only that is they're dealing with mood changes from hormone changes, and they're growing a whole human, right? They're definitely a vulnerable population where they might be at higher risks for certain health issues. What others can we think of, Wonderkids? I know we can definitely come up with some more. What other people might be in need? What other groups? Allison.
Maybe maybe there's someone that works like as a firefighter or a police officer because because if you're a police officer, it could be dangerous because there's also bad people with weapons. And as a firefighter, there's a lot of fire and we need lots of protection. And what if the protection doesn't work?
Right. Yeah, definitely. People who work in high risk jobs, right? And that could be police officers, firefighters. That could also be people who work in like construction, for example, right? And they're dealing with cranes and heavy instruments or tools that they used to work with. And can you think of some more?
Maybe people that have disorders.
Yeah, what kinds of disorders are you thinking of, Anam?
Maybe like they have like only one arm or like one leg, or maybe they have to like be in a wheelchair, or like they have like they broke their bones or something like that.
Yeah, people who need certain accommodations, right? So that they're able to get through their day and try and live as much of a normal life as possible, right? Because sometimes you guys know you've been somewhere and maybe somebody's in a wheelchair and there's no accessible entrances, right? This might be of interest to a health equity researcher, figuring out how to make sure everything is accessible for people. So, fantastic job. So, what is a group, first of all? So a group is people who share common characteristics, for example, like age, location, race, or income level, for example. And so why, as a health equity researcher, do I study groups, right? And I study groups to understand which groups might be in need, right? Might be more in need to help them stay healthy, for example, right? And so we came up with some examples of groups already. So we talked about the children and elderly, right? We talked about those that might need special accommodations because they are in a wheelchair or many other reasons that they have other disorders, right? And other groups that we might look at. What about low income communities? Does anybody know what low income means? Anybody know what low income means? I know.
It means like you have a little bit of money, not like too much, or like you can't afford something that you need.
Right. It means that you might only have a little bit of money. It might be difficult to afford certain things that you need. And why might they be a population or a group that's in need? Why would having low income mean that you might be in need? What do you think? Especially when we're thinking about health. I know.
Maybe because like they don't have like enough money to afford anything, or maybe like they're sick but like no one wants to help them, and they can't afford going to like the doctors or anything to get checkups and see what's going on.
Right, exactly, right. Maybe they're like, I don't feel too good, but for whatever reason, they don't have insurance or they don't have enough money to pay the copay when they go to see the doctor, right? This is a group as a health equity researcher. I'm interested in helping, right? I'm like, how? It's not fair just because they don't have enough money that they can't see a doctor, right? Everybody should be able to see a doctor, right? At least I think so as a health equity researcher. I think that everybody deserves to be able to get the healthcare that they need, right? And so as a health equity researcher, I'm interested in coming up with the reasons why these people might not be able to access healthcare or might be getting sick at a higher rate and figure out solutions to try and help them. Another group that I work with a lot are something called racial and ethnic minority groups. Does anybody know what that might mean? It's a really big mouthful. Anybody know what racial and ethnic minorities? Does anybody know what the word minority means, first of all? Minority. No. Go ahead, Alison.
I think minorities means like different types of people, maybe because because I can see the screen, it says minorities on the bottom, I'm guessing that it means that like somebody like that's a Black, African, American, Hispanic, Asian, or Native American. So that probably means like people from all over the world.
Yeah, people from all over the world, diverse populations, right? So generally, minority means a smaller number that makes up a larger number, right? So if we're looking at a minority, that means that these groups of people make up a smaller number of a larger population. Okay. And so we're generally interested in looking at some of these minority populations. Do you guys want to know why? Because what we find is a lot of my work, for example, is done on the Black and African American population, right? And when I look at that group, they tend to get certain diseases at a much higher rate. So I work in cancer, for example, and you find that a lot more Black people tend to die from cancer, right? And you see some of the same trends in Hispanic and Latino communities, okay? And so I'm interested, I'm like, that's not fair. I'm not okay with that, right? So I'm interested in coming up with some of the reasons or figuring out why is this happening? How do I empower these communities? How do I make it so that this is not the case, right? So that's all part of my job. And I do that by collecting data, by analyzing it, seeing the patterns, seeing the trends, figuring out why is this happening. Okay, so that's the first thing I do as a health equity researcher. I identify a group in need. I identify a gap, right? And then I use that to inform the types of research that I do. Okay, and one tool, we've talked so much about maps. You guys are probably sick of them, but they're so important. I use maps so much in my research, right? And there's one tool that I use a lot in my research, and it's called geographic information systems. Can anybody take a guess by breaking the word down? Geographic information system. What do you think that has to do with? What do you think that means? Alison, take a stab.
So I know I don't really know what it means, but if I could break it down, like geographic, I think I think it means like maps and all over the world. And graphic, I'm not really sure, but I'm guessing like it means like geographics, like graphics. And then information, like information from the world and the system means like geographic, like the world information in a computer or a phone or like a laptop or anything of that or a tablet.
That was excellent. Well done, Alison. That was an awesome answer. I'm going to give the other Wonder Kids an opportunity to also tell me what they think it is, but fantastic. Really good breakdown of the word there. Really fantastic. Zoe.
What's the word again? So I can.
Geographic information system.
Geographic. Let's see. That means
A geographic information system is a technology used for capturing, storing, analyzing, and visualizing statistical and geographic data.
Did you just Google that?
No.
It's okay if you did. That's a true scientist. You use the tools at your disposal. I like that. And what do you think geographic information systems are?
I think it means like places that you get information from, from like all over, kind of where you get information about the places that you visit, like kind of like maybe like in America, like you would like gather information and create a better like system for other people to be like better for them.
Okay, so using this tool and get information about locations to make things better for them. These are all fantastic answers, okay? So I'm going to break it down like Alison did. So first, geographic, right? Geography. It relates to locations and places on the earth, right? So good guess there, everybody, and good guess there, Alison, right? So for example, when we look at a map, we're talking about geography, right? So we might talk about where cities are, or where rivers or mountains are located, or things like hospitals, parks, playgrounds, shopping malls, right? All sorts of things, airports, right? So geographic means places, locations on Earth. Information means data or details about something. So information could be facts about how many people live in a city, right? Or, for example, where hospitals are located, right? That is technically information, right? And then what does system mean? Any guesses? Because I feel like the first two are, Alison, go ahead.
I think system means like a system, like something from electronics or technology, because in science we use the STEM, and then STEM has technology in it for the T, and then and I guess that it means like technology, or and then like, so yeah, the system is like all those electronic and like or like information or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. Great answer. So system is a set of things working together as part of, these are big words, as part of a mechanism or interconnecting network. So those are really big words, but it's the idea of things working together, right? Systems are bringing things together and making them work, okay? So for example, think of a system like your body's organs, right? Your organs are a system. They work together, and they work together to keep you healthy, right? Ever thought about it like that? Right? And in geographic information systems, right, it's the technology and the tools used to organize data about places, right? And why am I telling you this? You're like, Kelsey, you're telling me this big word, like, I don't understand, like, you're just wasting my time. No, geographic information systems are really important because I use them all the time in my research to learn about my communities and to learn about how I can help them, right? So it's really important. It's a really cool tool that you can use. And so today, I'm going to give you guys a demonstration of one of the softwares that I use. Exciting, right? You guys want to see it? One of the softwares, one of the real computer softwares that I use? Yeah? Right. So today we're going to learn about food deserts, right? And this is one of the things that I'm interested in researching as a researcher, right? It's important for health, it's important for communities, but why? Okay, and so let's first start with understanding what is a food desert, right? What does food mean, first of all? Giovanna.
Food is something that you eat.
Yeah. Food is something that you eat. It gives us energy. It keeps us alive, right? Very simple. What about a desert? What's a desert? Alison, it's a desert.
Wait, what type of, like, the dessert that you eat, or like the dessert place?
Dessert, no, desert place, yeah. So dessert, like
Oh.
you eat, is spelled with two S's.
Oh, So the desert is like a place where it's so hot and it's like one of the hottest places on earth and the sun is always shining there. And the only time when it's cold is like at night and there's also the cactuses are there, rattlesnakes and scorpions.
Yeah. So it's really hot there, right? And it gets cold at night. And another thing is that there tends to not be many things or many people in deserts, right? Because of the conditions, they're too extreme, right? So deserts are a place where there's very little of something. Like a desert has very little water. Okay, so if a desert is somewhere that has very little of something and food is something you eat, what's a food desert? Go ahead, Valerie. You got this. Desert is something you have very little of, and then food is something you eat.
Maybe it's like a little bit of food.
Yeah, just a little bit of food, right? And so when we're thinking about food deserts, we're thinking about areas that have very little food, but specifically very little healthy food. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we say food desert. We're like, this is an area that has very little access to healthy food. And why is it important that we're able to eat healthy food? What's important about eating healthy food? Jasleen? Jasleen, what do you think? Sorry, I'm cold calling you.
About food desert?
Why is it important that we eat healthy food? Like
Yeah,
why?
Cause when you eat healthy, you get healthier because if you keep eating junk food, then that's just gonna be bad for your health.
All right, it's gonna be bad for your health, right? We gotta eat healthy. I know fast food is tasty, but it's not good for you, right? Zoe, what else?
You need protein because some food has protein that are healthy.
Yeah, for sure, right? And so based off of this, I'm interested in looking at food deserts, right? And I'm interested in looking at food deserts specifically in LA, right? And so let's see. It's logged me out. And so what I did was I pulled up my software. Does anybody remember the name? It's okay, I barely remember it. So I used my GIS software, which is called ArcGIS Pro, right? And this is what it looks like. Do you guys recognize what we're looking at there? A little bit? Anybody recognizes it? It's LA, right? It's LA. I know, Alison, I'm sorry. And so I'm like, okay, food deserts are something that are important to me, right? I want to make sure that there's access to healthy food in LA, right? And so I want to use my software to see like, okay, if I'm in LA, how easy is it for me to go to the grocery store and get healthy food, right? So the first thing I did before today's lesson is I created something called a boundary. Does anybody know what a boundary is? Right? The general definition. Okay, go ahead, Justine. Sorry.
Like a a line that you, I guess, can't go out of. Like that's the place.
Yeah, a line that you can't go out of, right? It separates two areas or two spaces, right? And so there is a boundary for lots of different areas. Like, for example, there's a boundary for California, right? Once you get to the end of the boundary, you then go into Arizona or you then go into Mexico, for example, right? There is a boundary for lots of different places. So I created a boundary for central Los Angeles, right? And you guys remember it kind of looks similar to the one that we used last week. You guys remember? Or earlier this week on Tuesday. We used the map, if you guys still have it, for the heat map. Exactly. Zoe has it right there. That's an example of another boundary, right? We created a boundary which tells us everything inside of this is central Los Angeles. Okay. And so I created my boundary and I'm like, I'm interested to know what are the grocery stores inside of central Los Angeles? Like if I want to go to the grocery store, where can I go? So I found some data about the different grocery stores in Los Angeles, and then I put it on my map. So you guys see this on my map? And I use my software. I'll show you again. Look, boom, boom. Pretty cool, right? So you know how on Tuesday we did everything by hand? I'm able to just upload all of the locations for the grocery store and boom, they're on my map. Pretty cool, right? So then I'm like, okay, what do I notice about these grocery stores? What do you guys notice about them? There are lots of them, not too many of them. What do you think? First impressions. Anybody has any thoughts? Just what you see. It doesn't have to be super scientific. Jasleen?
There's like not a lot at Beverly Hills, and there's like a lot like scattered around the New York says Los Angeles. Like,
Yeah, up here, right? There's a lot more. Beverly Hills, you're probably not going to be able to get to the grocery store, right? You're going to struggle. You might have to come outside of central Los Angeles to go, right? But there's some clustered here, and there's some spread out. I mean, there's a decent number, right? You could probably go to the grocery store easy enough. But it's not really very informative unless I compare it to something else, right? So I'm thinking, well, I wonder how many fast food restaurants there are, right? So I was like, let me look at fast food. Who likes fast food? I like it sometimes too. I like it. But I know that healthy food is good for me, so I try not to eat fast food. So I'm like, let me look at the fast food stores. Uh-oh. What do we notice about the fast food stores? What do we see? Let's go. Everybody has a chance to chime in. So Giovanna, go first.
There's a lot more than grocery stores.
There's a lot more than grocery stores, definitely. What else do we see, Jasleen?
there's like a lot at Los Angeles.
Right. I think this is like downtown area, right? There's so many all clustered. Look at them. They're like on top of each other. That probably means they're next to each other. Blah, 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 like that. So many. And Num, what else do you see?
I noticed that some of the fast food stores are closer to the grocery stores. So maybe like people have two choices and they might go to the fast food store instead of the grocery store.
Right. Thinking like a true health equity researcher, right? Even if you have the best intentions in the world, you're like, no, I'm going to buy my groceries today. I'm going to go home and I'm going to cook, right? And you show up and you see Wendy's right there. And then you see Ralph's right there. And you're like, oh, but it's so much easier for me to get Wendy's right now, right? It's a difficult choice that people have to make. And these are things we have to think about as researchers. Valerie, go ahead.
There is a lot at Franklin Avenue too.
Right, a lot of cluster, right? Franklin Avenue is right here, right? Huge cluster. I think this is like West Hollywood, right? So many, or this might actually just be Hollywood, actually. Yeah, I think it's just Hollywood. So many in Hollywood. Allison, what else do you see?
I can see that there's so many fast food restaurants, so people could go more to fast food, and I think that's what health researchers are trying to figure out, like how to make more groceries. And then if there's healthy stores, like healthy restaurants, there's probably gonna be less because most people like fast food more than more than healthy, and they just wanna trick them, because there's also ads that make it look better.
Yeah, right. The marketing is showing like, oh, you can even get like this burger. It has lettuce on it. Oh, you get one of your vegetables a day. Still not good for you. Okay. They make it look so scrumptious. Ariana and Zelda, did you have something you wanted to say? You guys are upside down.
Yeah, I wanted to say that it happened in a different day. My friend Emily, she was gonna catch a spider in the girls' bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Like, but behind the doors there were a shade, and then she grabbed it in a little cup, and then she showed it to the boys, and then the boys said that's a scorpion spider. And then Ethan tried to like put it like somewhere else, but it still came back up. in the lunch garden.
Oh my goodness. I hope they were okay. They were good. Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so those were all great insights, right? About the grocery stores compared to the fast food, right? We're all in agreement that there's a lot more fast food, right? And even if you have the best intentions in the world, you may be tempted, right? And then not only that, is that some grocery stores are more expensive than others, right? Has anybody been to Whole Foods before with their parents? Or Air One? Oh my goodness me. So expensive, right? And so even if you're like, I want to make a good choice, right? You may be part of a low income community and it might be difficult for you to afford the grocery stores that are close by to you. Another thing I want you guys to consider as well is transport, right? Not everybody has a car, for example, right? So what do you think if you don't have a car? What other ways might you get around if you don't have a car? Giovanna.
A bus.
A bus, right? What else might you do? And
Maybe you could ride a bicycle or drive a scooter.
yeah, drive a bicycle or drive a scooter. I do want to take your input, but we're running out of time. So I'm gonna go on, but you have the chance to contribute before we end, don't worry. So based off of that, I'm like, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about how difficult it is going to be for you to go to a grocery store versus fast food based on your mode of transport, right? So I want you to think about this, right? We have three people. One person travels by walking, okay? One person travels by bus, and one person travels by car, okay? If you had to rank these people, who do you think is going to be able to travel the least furthest versus the furthest? What do we think? So who's going to be able to travel the furthest with the most ease? Valerie.
I think the car will be able to like move the furthest.
Yeah, with the most ease, right? You have your own car, you can drive wherever you want, you're not restricted. Who's the next? Which person is going to be able to travel the next furthest distance? Jasleen.
The bus.
The bus, right? Again, you're a motorized vehicle. You might have to wait for the bus for a little bit. You might have to get on a couple of buses, but it's going to be easier, right, than you using another mode of transport, which is walking, right? Eventually, you're going to get tired. There's only so far you can walk, right? And so with that in mind, right, on the map that I just showed you on ArcGIS Pro, we're going to create 3 circles, right? And each of the circles will represent the area that someone is able to travel based on their mode of transport, right? And we're going to use the crypto arena as our central point. Who likes the Lakers? Go Lakers, go LeBron James. Yeah. Woo. Okay. So we're going to first locate the crypto arena. So if I lived at the crypto arena for whatever reason, I don't live at the crypto arena, right? I'm going to look at what are the grocery stores around me? What are the fast food restaurants around me? How easy is it going to be for me to get healthy food, right? So the first thing I did before today's lesson was I located the crypto arena. Does everyone see that here? So it's right here, look. It's marked with this icon, which is like a sports complex, right? And the next thing I did was I was like, okay, I'm going to create realistic areas based on how far I think someone could travel based on their mode of transport. And so I created these 3 circles, these 3 areas that someone could travel. Everyone sees that? Right? So what does the smallest circle represent here? So what does this circle represent, Jasleen?
Walking.
Right, the area that somebody could travel to if they're walking. What about the next biggest circle? What does this area represent? Giovanna.
The bus.
The bus, right? You can travel a little bit further. It's a little bit easier. Might have to get on a couple of buses, but you can go a little bit further. And Anum, what about the biggest circle? What does that represent?
How far you could drive with the car.
Right, you're much easier for you to travel far with the car, right? And so if I zoom into my map, So this is very cool. ArcGIS is the best. Look at this. I can zoom in so close and I can see specifically the number of grocery stores versus fast food. Look at that. Boom. So now we're focusing on the circle that Jasleen said is walking, right? And she's right. This is walking. So if I'm at the crypto arena, I'm able to walk this far, okay? What do we notice about the grocery stores versus fast food in this area here? What do we notice? Just observations. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. Anum?
There are more fast food stores than grocery stores in this area.
Yeah, most certainly. Much more, right? I think I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 grocery stores, and then the rest are all fast food. There's like 3 or 4 of them all on top of each other right here, right? Just think about it. Just note it, right? I'm walking. I have like 4 options. I really hope that they're not all Whole Foods. That's all I'm saying, right? Because otherwise, I'm going to Wendy's, and I really don't want to do that because I want to stay healthy, right? So then now, let's have a look at the area for getting the bus. What do we notice about this area? What do we notice? Giovanna.
There's a lot of fast food.
Still a lot of fast food, right? I see some more grocery stores. 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. There's one down here too, but still I'm tempted, right? If I'm at this grocery store, I can see both of these. If I'm at this grocery store, if I'm at this one, right? There's fast food everywhere, right? Any other thoughts? Anum?
Um, there's like there's fast food stores like next to the grocery stores, and there's like little bit lesser than what we saw where you could go walking and get stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Great observations. Spoken like true scientist, right? And so now zooming out a little bit more, right? We're now looking at the area for getting the car, right? For driving a car, right? What do we see now, Allison? Oh, you didn't have your hand up. No. Anybody else? Any thoughts? No, go ahead.
I noticed that there's like more grocery stores than all of them, and there's also still a lot of fast food stores in that area.
Yeah, great observation, right? So Anum said there's more grocery stores here, which is pretty cool, right? So I think one conclusion we can draw is if you have a car, it's going to be much easier for you to explore your options, right? We notice in this area for having a car, there's a lot more. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a lot more, right? And I can also access these ones if I want to too, right? So what do we think, right? Do we think that this is a problem? How can health equity researchers make sure that there are no food deserts? What are some solutions based off of the information that we've gathered from this map, Allison?
A solution could be like just like if there's like a copies of a store, maybe there's a Wendy's here and another Wendy's there and another there. Maybe we could just take 2 down and leave 1 there. Or we could just take them all down and just put them like separately, so like so far away, separate from the grocery stores, and the groceries should move next to the houses so people could just go to the grocery store instead of having to draw like at least 1 hour to go to a fast food store and just getting what you want. If you could just go to the grocery and make it at home another 1 hour.
Yeah, great ideas. We're almost out of time, so I'll take the last few ideas on what we can do to try and get rid of these food deserts. We need healthy food. And no, what do you think?
I think that maybe like we could like tell the people that work at the fast food store to use healthier ingredients to make food.
Yeah, that's thinking outside the box, right? what if we said to the fast food stores, okay, you can still be fast food, but fast doesn't have to equal unhealthy, right? That's another way that we could approach this problem. So what I really like about those solutions is that they're approaching from completely different angles, right? We could do one thing. We could say, okay, we need to maybe close down some, or we need to spread them out. Or we could ask the fast food chains to make healthier foods. Another thing we could do is work with communities, work with people and educate them and say, look, it's really important that you eat healthy food, even if you're tempted, right? Another thing we could do is talk to the government and be like, hey, we have a real problem in Los Angeles. What can we do to tackle this? So as a health equity researcher, you might work in lots of different areas and tackle issues based on your expertise, whatever you're an expert on, okay? So I'm sorry that we ran out of time today, guys, but great engagement, great questions. You guys are the best. Do we have any final questions before we end today? Could be about anything. I never talk about my research. You can ask me any questions, or we can end if you don't have any. Let me know. Let me know if you have any. Go ahead, Giovanna.
For how many years have you been a data scientist? Oh, what I can't say.
Yeah, you said it right. So I have worked in data science and health equity research now for, let's see, I did my master degree in 2021. So it's been about 3 years, so not too long. But before that, I was in school. So I was in college before that, and I did my undergraduate in biochemistry. And then that's when I realized I want to do health equity research. So I haven't been doing it for too long compared to some of the guest speakers that you guys have had come speak to you. But I've been doing it for a few years now, about 3 or 4 years. Any last questions before we end today, Alison?
What inspired you to do a health researcher? And what age did you start be saying like, oh, when I grow up, I'll be a health researcher?
Yeah, those are great question, Alison. So I think what inspired me was that I really wanted to help communities, right? And I know we hear that a lot, but it was really important to me. I saw, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, I saw a lot of people from my community getting sick, right? And getting sick more often or at a higher rate than some other groups. And so I was like, how can I help my people? And I always knew that I had a big brain, right? As do all of you guys. You guys all have really big brains that you can use and do whatever you want with. And so I thought it was important that I use my brain to try and help people. So I said, okay, I want to become a researcher. I want to get my PhD. So that's what inspired me. And what was your second question? I already forgot it.
What age did you start saying like I will be a health researcher? Like when did you start getting inspired by it?
Yeah, I think I started to get inspired by it when I was around 21, I think. And I had lots of conversations with my friends, and they said, oh, you're really passionate about helping people, Kelsey. Why don't you go into health research? So talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to people that you respect. They're going to encourage you to follow your dreams. And it's really important that you do that. So we are really over today, Wonderkids. Great engagement again. Very proud of you all. Can we take just a picture? I know we don't have anything to show, but just take a picture before we end. Everybody say cheese on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Cheese.
You guys are adorable. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next week on Tuesday. Thank
Great
you.
job today, Wonder Kids.
Bye.
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 Bye.